Hi 108, this is week 3. We are covering unit 11, or I should say we're continuing to review, and unit 11 again should be a review unit for you. With unit 11, our main emphasis is making sure that you understand the difference between a 5 and a 5-7 chord, working with the most common inversions that we find the 5 and 5-7 chord in, and then using our recognition of the spacing to help us with our reading, and then making sure that we're applying it correctly in our harmonization. So just to review, if I'm working in the key of C, my 5 chord, of course, having that root of G, major, third, perfect, fifth, the most common inversion that we're going to find it in would be a 5-6. Remember that 5-6 or first inversion is telling you that it is the third that's brought down and is the lowest sounding note. We talked about inversions on that video last week. Remember that we also could find this in a second inversion, which means that the fifth is the lowest sounding note. And then instead of a 6-3, it would be notated as a 5-6-4. Remember, these Arabic numerals are coming from telling you the distance from the lowest sounding note to the middle, the lowest sounding note to the top. That is very different from when you are asked to have a 5-7 chord being voiced. So a 5-7 chord is a 4-note chord. Here again is my regular 5 chord, my G major. This Arabic 7 is asking you to add an additional note that is a minor 7th up from the root. So in the key of G, it would be, in the key of C, it would be GBD as my 5 chord, and then that added minor 7th of an F. The most common inversion that you're going to find with your 5-7 chord is a 5-6-5. That is a first inversion chord. By putting the third on the bottom, we're going to take that added 7th and put it in the middle. We're going to carry that root across. We are dropping out the 5th, so making it a 3-note chord so that it's a seamless transition with the rest of our chords that are normally done in a 3-voice chord. The 5th makes sense to drop because we need that third for the quality of major or minor. We need that 7th to differentiate it. Again, my numbers of 5 and 6 are coming from that placement of the distance from the root. So I would encourage you to incorporate this with your group 1 and group 2 scales. You should be practicing your major scale up and down 2 octaves, your major arpeggio up and down 2 octaves, and then follow that, if I'm in the key of C, of a 1 chord. Let's do a regular 5 in first inversion. How about in second inversion? Let's go back to our 1 chord. Now let's make it a 5-7 in first inversion. So memorizing the spacing, memorizing that if I'm going to a 5-6, that's without the 7th, that my top stays the same, my lower 2 voices are stepping down. Memorizing that if I'm going to a 5-7, it's my top that's staying the same. The 5-7 forms a neighbor on the top in that first inversion. That's a great thing to look for. And then back to 1. You should be able to take this through all your different keys. When you go into the unit, on page 151, there's a repertoire piece. And before you sit down and play it, whether it's hands together or hands separate, take a look at the left hand and see if you can read through it simply by looking at the spacing. 1, 1, 5-7. I'm recognizing it by those neighbors on the top. I see the neighbors on the top, but notice what's happened here. Instead of dropping the 5th, they've dropped the 3rd. So maybe an arrow up or pointing to something, giving yourself some sort of clue that the bottom's different there. So use that to help your reading. As you turn into the sight reading, same thing. Be careful that you don't get caught reading so fast. Common mistake is people will play a 5-7 chord here. You do not see that second on the top. The spacing there is not a 5-7, it's actually just a 5-6. Here's my 5-7, thinking about that it's the 5th on the bottom and not the 3rd. So using that to be very precise. Your quiz for this week is actually number 3 on page 153. I'd like to hear a chord progression of 1, 5-7-1. Can you add it with that common inversion of a 4? 1, 4, 6, 4, 1, 5, 7, 1. And then playing number 3. Your second step for your quiz then is to transpose it to A, and again, please set it up with a chord progression. Your harmonization this week is all your own choices for chords. Do write in what you're doing and be precise, because what we need to be careful of is when we're getting ready for the proficiency. If they're asking you for a 5 chord and you put a 7 in there, it will be marked wrong. Likewise, if it's a 5-7 and you play a regular 5-6 or a 5-6-4 second inversion, it'll be marked wrong. So start with that idea as you're working on the harmonization. Write in your chord sequences and be precise. Try putting a 5 first inversion, 5 second inversion, 5-7 first inversion. Try using a variety and get used to being able to switch seamlessly between the two, or be able to notice and be precise with which one that you want to do. So lots of 5-7 chords, using them both in your technique and in warm-up, getting the chord progression working, but also just watching when we see them in repertoire and being precise at what type of chord they're asking us for, and in particular harmonization, because that will be key, making sure that you play exactly what's asked for.